Rescuers in Turkey are digging through rock to try to reach 15 people trapped underground after an explosion at a coal mine. At least 28 people are thought to have died in the blast in Amasra on the Black Sea coast. Initial reports suggest it had been caused by a build-up of flammable gases. Russell Trott reports.
The rescuers show no sign of letting up. Dropped 300 metres or nearly 1,000 feet down into the darkness in a race against time. Crowds gathered around the head of the mine shaft at Amasra in northern Turkey. Some were family members of the dead and injured, quietly dignified, awaiting news from those digging through the rock. The details have yet to be fully revealed. An initial assessment was that methane gas had somehow ignited.
110 of our brothers were working in the mine. Some of them, the ones on the upper level, managed to exit right after the explosion. Some others have been rescued. At the moment, people are being transferred to the hospital.
Mining-related accidents happen all over the world. It's one of the riskiest of jobs. This latest incident is said to have taken place in one of the facility's high-risk zones. President Erdogan is expected to visit the site on Saturday. The local prosecutor's office has begun an investigation into what happened at this state-owned mine and tried to find ways of preventing it from ever happening again. Russell Trott, BBC News.
Well, let's stick with this story and get more with Ruth Michelson, a reporter for The Guardian, who is in Istanbul. Thank you for joining us, Ruth. It is mid-morning there, and this is a story that is developing minute by minute. What more can you tell us?
Well, we know that rescue workers have been working through the night since the explosion occurred about 6:45 p.m. yesterday to try and rescue dozens of people who are still trapped inside the mine. We know that the Interior Minister, Suleyman Soylu, said earlier today that there were 110 people inside the mine at the time of the explosion. And it's unclear how many of them are still trapped. There were 49 who were particularly trapped inside a high-risk area of the facility, he said, but it's not clear how many of those people now have been rescued from the inside.
So a worrying situation, and like I said, developing ongoing. We know some people have been rescued. What do we know about their condition?
Well, we know that there are the ones that have been rescued have been taken to hospitals locally, and some have been taken airlifted to hospital here in Istanbul. The members of the government have said that there is no current risk to life to 11 of them that have been brought here to Istanbul. But obviously there are concerns about those who are still trapped inside the mines, and concern about that the death toll is going to rise from 28, given that this has now been going on, well into the next day, given that this occurred late last night.
And we have been hearing from Turkey's finance minister, because whilst that rescue operation goes on, people will want answers immediately. What has he been sharing about the potential cause?
Well, the potential cause so far, as you mentioned, the finance minister's statement has been cited as a fire damp explosion. So that's a buildup of explosive gases that can occur inside the mine. And there are certainly questions, given that this was a state-owned mine, about what was known about the safety of the mine beforehand. Given that mining explosions, as you mentioned in the piece earlier, they occur all over the world. But for example, the head of the independent mining business union spoke to the opposition Cumhuriyet and said, we've experienced a number of major mining disasters in Turkey, notably in 2014 in the town of Soma, where 301 people died. And he said there are mines all over the world, but these disasters always occur in mines in Turkey.
Interesting. And on that subject, I know that President Erdogan is heading to the impacted area, to that Black Sea coast area where that mine is. But with regards to resources, does the country have the sufficient capacity to tackle a crisis of this kind?
Well, absolutely. I mean, Turkey has vast infrastructure. It's something that the government prides itself on. And this is an area with a large mining infrastructure spread across a part of the country that is traditionally seen as quite favorable to Erdogan's Justice and Development Party. So this is something where the government is obviously prioritizing a huge amount of resources to make sure that this is a disaster that doesn't reach the proportions of previous mining disasters in the same part of the country. The question, and this is certainly something that Erdogan alluded to in, or spoke to quite directly, when he tweeted a statement essentially warning people against spreading disinformation about this incident and saying that people should only follow official accounts of what happened, is how much responsibility was there for mine safety and what was alerted prior to the incident. So someone from the Turkish Court of Accounts, which is a kind of government audit group, also released a statement mentioning that someone from their organization had visited the mine recently, but they essentially said that reports that this was for some kind of audit or inspection purposes were also disinformation. So the information around the safety of the mine prior to this and whether anyone raised concerns is certainly very unclear, and the government seems to be quite concerned about what they would regard as disinformation about this incident.
Really good to get your expertise. Ruth Michelson there, a reporter for The Guardian, and we will continue to follow this story here on BBC World News.